Staying time now for us to dig into the papers and guess whom we have. Yes, as announced, media consultant Liz Hayfron Asare. She is our guest as we get into the papers and also explore other matters of national concern. A very good morning to you, Liz. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Great. It's always a pleasure. And this morning, even before we get into the paper, some of them reflect some of the matters I want to get into. But we're hearing that fuel prices are going days. I mean, it's almost becoming absurd. Anytime you go to the fuel pumps and you take a look, you almost expect there to be a change. And that is our new reality. You also go out there and you feel the pinch. How do you react to this? I mean, every day. When was the last time you went and saw a difference?
So I don't know.
Oh, okay. But I mean, however you get yourself by, I mean, and I'm sure you've noted that people have been talking about the fact that the prices keep moving up. You followed that, I want to believe. What is your reaction to that? For me, because I go to the pumps all the time, when I go and I just take a look up, I look at it and I'm like, if it hasn't changed, I'm like, oh, thank God. If it has, there we go again.
Well, I guess we'll have to live with it for some time. It is a worrying factor in effect. So everybody is concerned about fuel prices. But when we look at the world scenario and the fact that Russia and Ukraine are still at it, where they're still at war, and these are places where we look to for fuel. I mean, the rest of the world depends on both places and the other areas. And the war itself is causing so much hardship. And so prices will definitely go up from time to time. And anytime the world price for fuel goes up, we should know that we would have an increase in our fuel price.
Interesting.
Even though we explore oil, we are not refining it so that it mitigates whatever we are doing. We are selling the crude the way it is, and we are importing refined fuel because store is more or less kind of like defunct.
Rightly so. Rightly so. Since we are actually importing, basically producing, taking out of the country and bringing back, it's pretty problematic. But let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. There are a number of other issues I'd like to run by you, but let's get into the Daily Graphic first, and we shall get to the others later. Ghana turns to debate, but there's also Shraj. Complaints rise, resolves over 8,000 cases. That story as well on page 13 of that newspaper. Now, 8 months after Ajen Kotoku relocation, onion sellers bemoan poor amenities. Yeah, the onion sellers have been talking. And it's interesting because I was there in the thick of things. In fact, I was in Ajen Kotoku. I went to the location back then when this move actually happened, and there were some facilities they did not have. So let's take a quick look at that story. 8 months after relocating from Agbubloshi to Ajen Kotoku, onion sellers continue to express disappointment over inadequate amenities and limited space to ply their trade in the new market. Adequate washroom facilities, potable water, as well as a mosque to serve the predominantly Muslim population at the market are developments the traders said they were yet to witness. An 8-seater lavatory facility is the only available washroom serving the over 2,000 bulk breaking traders and their customers in the area. Regular visits by the Daily Graphic spanning over 5 weeks have revealed. Additionally, the limited number of sheds at the place has driven some of the traders into open spaces, exposing them to harsh weather conditions. And there's a picture that you may not see, but it's on page 3. A makeshift structure which serves as a washroom for the traders. Nothing to write home about. Your quick take on this, Liz. It appears, I don't know what it is, but whatever we plan to execute, whether it's from the General Hospital that we're trying to restore, 2 years after having brought it down to the ground, or relocating onion sellers, it seems whatever we do, there's always a but somewhere. We never do anything to perfection. But what's your reflection on this bit? Because I was there, they complained about these things 8 months ago, and 8 months after, it still is what it is.
Our work ethic is poor. And I would want to believe that we thought that the relocation was because the place had been done.
Right.
And therefore it was habitable. So that was why they were moving them, much as we wanted to clear Agbogboshi. I think that the authorities should be up on their game. I think that we should not shortchange ourselves, because if you're shortchanging an extension of everybody's home, and so if the place is hygienic, then you know that you want to go there and shop and bring the produce home. If it's not, then all of us are at risk, because if it's in a deplorable state and there are not enough facilities, what are they resorting to? If there are only if there's only an 8-seater washroom for 2,000 people, then when there are more than 8 people desperate at the same time, what happens? So then the environment becomes degraded. There'll be contamination on the onions, and definitely if you go and buy it and take it home, you're taking contaminated onions home. So our health is something that we should be thinking about. And I think that when we decide that we're doing something, we should do it and do it well. We should be efficient and effective. So if you want to move them in a short space of time, you should make sure that where you're moving them to is up to scratch, so that you don't have people wanting to move back because maybe where they were was better than where you've moved them to. We should work together as a people and ensure that we look out for each other and care for each other. So whoever is responsible for moving them and for taking care of the place and making sure that the amenities are provided for them. So
if it's shoddy work that has been done, of course, the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Henry Quartey, has been at the forefront of all of this, not just in Agbogboshi, but in other areas as well, even the cleaning that is going on in the region. But if we will do something, then we might as well do it fully, shouldn't we? There's also the story, not a story basically, it's an editorial piece that I'd like you to react to. It's by Caroline Boateng, and who is with the Daily Graphic. And she talks about breaking biases, women their own enemies. She concludes through that day and the celebration from last week, it taught me that no, women are not their own enemies. More often we cooperate and collaborate well. But I'm just bringing this up since quite obviously you're a woman, and since this charge often comes up in your corporate life, in your familial life. And what do you think we can do to change that narrative where people think, oh, women are this and women are that, especially in office, they tend to act like this, and it works against other women?
Women are not their own enemies. I have always said that women are not their own enemies. My rising to the top was as a result of role models that I had, even in my office, who were women and who encouraged me to do the best that I could. And so I rose quickly because I was getting all the help I could from the women, as well as the men. When women are principled and strict, a lot of us women don't like those kind of women. We like women that we can kind of like patronize, and they put their foot down when you do something wrong. Then you begin to shy away from them and think that they're being overbearing or something like that. When the men do it to their male counterparts, nobody says anything about men being strict and principled and pushing their male counterparts to the wall. The moment a woman does it, she's called names. She's Iron Lady, she's strong-headed, she's whatever, and you find that in offices where the women are at the top, the men will come to you and try to patronize you and say, oh, you must have a soft heart, you must be a mother, you must be accommodating. And then there's a problem. but women are definitely not their own enemies. I have encouraged a lot of women and a lot of girls to stay focused, to work hard and move to the top. And together we can make it.
Together we can make it. Let's wrap with one other women's story, and then we can proceed from there. That's with the Daily Graphic newspaper. 42% girls and women anemic, and that's according to the health authorities. Let's break it down. About 42% of women in the country are anemic. The Upper East Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Emmanuel Kofi Doji, has disclosed. He said at least 45% of the figure were pregnant women. And of course, we know that when women go into pregnancy, they develop blood pressure issues and also anemia. And with another 48% of them being adolescent girls. Looking at this medical statistic, of course, we're also trying to meet global health targets and all of that. How worrying is it for you that 42% of girls and women in Ghana are anemic? Shocking for me.
It is very worrying. And I didn't hear you talk about the causes for them.
That it remains a major public health concern in Ghana and common among children, adolescent girls, and women of childbearing age. I mean, I didn't want to overflog the story, but of course, we know about periodic blood losses. For our women, once they hit adolescence, we also know about nutrition and all of that and how they contribute to anemia. All of them in here as well.
And I know recently, I know recently from personal experience that a lot of Black women suffer from fibroids. And so that also adds up to the level of anemia. But I know that, and I'm talking for pregnant women, I know that when I was pregnant and I went for antenatal, I was given certain medication to take. And that is supposed to help boost your blood and to help to keep you strong. So you're given iron and B-Co and multivite and all kinds of things. What I realize is that because women do not want to put on, women end up being anemic when they're pregnant. Because
wow, you're suggesting, is this from experience, dealing with some of the women or hearing?
From my personal experience, I also did not want to put on weight. So for my first child, I wasn't taking it. Then I realized I was always anemic. So that I had to take blood tonic and things like that. And my next child that I had, when I took the medication that I was given when I went for antenatal, I didn't have any problem and I didn't have anything to do with anemia. I was just fine. The only thing was that I put on weight because definitely I have problems. But again, women...
I know, I'm sorry I keep cutting in, but this whole bit about, it's not new to me, but it just hit me. So women don't want to gain extra weight. And I'm assuming part of it is because they also don't want to, after pregnancy, bloat or look too big. And it may be a construct of our society, right? Because then they're afraid that the men would, shy away from them, not be attracted to them anymore. So I guess there's a lot of education that must go into this then.
Exactly. That we need everybody's on the move, everybody's on the go. You don't have time to stay home and cook. You're working, you come back, you have to take care of children. And like of old, our mothers were the last ones to eat. It still pertains to today. The woman would serve everybody and eat what is left. And even if it's not enough, she makes do with that. And I think that again, should be something that we should look at. Then we should change from just eating anything to eating nutritious foods. Because definitely every month, if you have your period, you will lose blood. How are you going to restore it? I mean, you need to eat to make sure that you're healthy. You need to eat well to make sure that you can be on the move and you can go. And when you're anemic, your output at work is negative. Because you're always tired, you're always feeling weak.
Right.
So we need to pay attention to it. And if it's a public health issue, then I expect that the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health should be up and running with this issue of making sure that women would do the proper things to make sure that they're well, they're healthy, and they're strong.
Right. And I don't think it's a matter of if, it is. 10. That's shocking. Anyway, let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. And treason felony case. I am ready to stand trial. Guess who's saying that? Oliver Barker-Vomawor of Fix the Country fame. We'll get into other stories, but let me take a quick look at that. So, at least, Oliver Barker-Vomawor, the man charged with provisional treason felony, has told the Tema High Court that he is in good health and ready to stand trial. This was his response when the presiding judge, Daniel Mensah, asked of his well-being. The accused was taken ill last week and treated at the police hospital in Accra. His counsel, led by Mr. Akoto Ampao, were in court to move a bail application for the accused, who is the head or the lead convener of the Fix the Country movement. You would recall, Liz, that he was accosted on February the 11th, and since that time, he's not been granted bail. But according to his lawyer, though he deems the comments of his client reckless and condemnable, they could be that, the prosecution has been unable to show the applicant was prepared to carry through his threats charge that could be leveled against anybody in the country. There are rules to be followed. He's not been granted bail. He's been taken to a district court that has been unable to, grant any bail application. His well-being at some point has been in question. What do you make of this entire development? And now he's saying, if you think you have a case, take me on. Let's have this trial. Your take?
So what are we trying? Are we trying freedom of speech? He did say some things that were worrying. Could they have picked him up and cautioned him and told him that this could lead to other things and then let him off? Keeping him for this long, I also struggle to think or to understand why he was picked up and what other steps can we take to make sure that we are not putting freedom of speech in the dock, such that people would begin to start kind of looking at a culture of silence, where we fear that if we speak and we speak out of 10, then we'll be picked up. So what exactly are we looking at? Why isn't there bail? I hoped that maybe we would have heard a lot more from Mr. Akoto Ampao. Now that he says that he's well and he's ready for trial, let's see what comes.
Die in 3 separate road crashes on Sunday. And I saw you wince when I mentioned that. In fact, in the course of a few days, 17 have died. Some students, there was a groom who was heading for his wedding ceremony, and he was driving, he together with some others, about 4 of them, many of them severely injured. He lost his life. 17 people over a matter of days. And get this, though the statistics both for accident rates and casualties, or those who suffer fatalities, have reduced marginally by about 3% and 9%, you look at the fact that between January and February, we have lost 469 people. Ghanaians, most of them. And how much of a cause for worry is this? The National Road Safety Authority has reacted with a statement saying that sometimes, yes, people are inattentive, people...
I don't know what more we can do. We need to change our attitudes, because if you see that, when you see people driving on the road, when you're traveling, I go to Cape Coast quite often. And when you see the speed at which people are driving, you wonder, where are they going? What is their hurry? If you knew you had to be at a particular place at a certain time, why didn't you take off on time? What is the rush? And then you realize that there's a lot. What kind of people are driving? Who are those that are behind the wheel? Are we sure that everybody has gone through some drive training to make sure that they understand the signs on the road, to make sure that they are being careful and being proper, especially for the commercial drivers? And I keep saying that when I take a commercial vehicle, the first thing I tell the driver is I want to get where I'm going. When I sit in my car, I tell the driver, I'm the one who is going, not you. You drive at my pace, not yours. So we need to be careful. We need to make sure, I'm saying, why don't we make sure that our drivers are educated? Let us have educated drivers, at least to JHS. Let them understand the road signs. Let them understand that people's lives are at stake. If we don't do that, then we are in for serious trouble, and definitely there'll be more deaths. We used to blame the roads before, but I believe that the roads don't cause accidents. It's those behind the wheels. It's those who, you see people behind the wheel and they have the phone in their hand. You see people, and the police started arresting and then stopped because we are recalcitrant. I mean, no matter what you do, we'll still talk on the phone and give the police something to let us off. We won't use our earpieces and all like that. So, and we are having accidents as a result of speeding and careless driving. I shudder to think what it will be when the roads are good.
Indeed, a worry. Let me just tie in this two stories that I want to bring up, one in Ghana and one in Kenya. If you've been following the international front, in Kenya, some 16 boda boda riders, some sort of vehicle they use there, motorcycle-like, and they assaulted a woman, dragged her out of her vehicle, and ripped her clothes, and now 16 of them, newspaper. Man gets 10 years for publishing naked videos of businesswomen. And it appears some people have still not come to terms with the fact that you cannot do that. Your own nudity is not acceptable, even out there, to talk of someone else's. And for those who forget that there is a law bordering on displaying other people's nudity because maybe you have those pictures available to you, whether you're a spited lover or whatever. But in this story, a CCTV by an Accra Circuit Court, Several has also been ordered to pay 10,000 Ghana cedis as compensation to the woman for the trauma caused her. A step in the right direction. And why do you feel, is it chauvinism? What kind of society do we have in which across Africa you see a lot of these incidents, men feeling they have the right to deal with women in certain ways or even expose their nakedness? Your quick take on that.
And my question is it her private residence or is it office or is it a hotel? I mean, where did he get those pictures from? Where was he able to access CCTV from? Much as it is wrong for him to publish, we need to go beyond the publication, because if we are not being careful in protected, then we have a problem. It's good that he's been jailed. I mean, you just don't go about publishing nudity all over the place. Like you said, even yours, it's a problem. I mean, it is something that we frown on as a society, but our rules also have said that you can't openly display nudity people more. I always say that when something is done and somebody goes wrong, if you still keep quiet and do not educate the populace, then you have not done anything at all, because not everybody would follow your story and know what happened to culprit A. So we need to educate the people. We need to also make our laws available for people to understand that this is what the law says and you can't go beyond that.
Let me quickly acknowledge Ciara the way from there. The Daily Guide newspaper, and I have a bit of a, not a bashing, but I don't know how to call it, because sometimes you see certain stories and you know what is behind the stories. If you read the Daily Guide newspaper from yesterday and some of what they carried concerning the speaker, today they come through with Kofi Atokri's file over acting speaker post. But the way the story was couched yesterday, and I have a problem with many of our newspapers, whether these themselves, I mean, I feel we ought to go above the board in our reportage so that we are not so politically skewed. Yesterday, the story, of course, sitting here, I knew what it was. The speaker has now responded, and today we have Kofi Atokri's file over acting speaker post. Not even an acknowledgement of any, but anyway, it is what it is. Driver arrested for assaulting sex worker, judgment day for Kumanga, and Sosu Asepa boss others trials adjourned. But what do you times in some areas that it's pathetic. It's pathetic. How do you feel about that as a media player?
I'm smiling because yesterday I was on with a colleague, and a seasoned journalist about our stance when it comes to reporting. And we were talking about a particular story, and I said that in my days at Ghanaian editor, then Christian Agui, will make sure that I talk to everybody who is involved with that story before the story will see the light of day. It was not about sensationalism. It was not about breaking news first or anything. It was about making sure that it was the facts that you were putting out and not listening to somebody trying to put something together, because in the end you realize that you publish something which is, we are so polarized as a people. It's either NDC or MPP. And if you're being objective, then you're looked at in a certain way. I mean, as if you don't live in Ghana or as if you don't belong to us. You must belong somewhere.
Right.
And that is becoming our bane, because we have so flooded the media now with politics. I mean, even to the extent that certain radio stations, FM stations, are playing in the political space. So then objectivity has been thrown through the window. And it is very worrying if the media has to play its proper role in making sure that the government is kept on its toes, making sure that people are fed the right information, in making sure that we are not only putting out what politicians want us to put out, but that we are informing, educating, conscious of the fact that the role that we are playing is an important one. And I was saying to my colleague that in my day, your story was for the reader to be able to make up their mind after they've read the story, not for you to tell them what they should believe or what they should think.
Right. Interesting, really refreshing to hear that from you. The final newspaper, I'll just wrap with the headlines and I will call it a 21 fourth quarter food price increases. Only 7.4% of households are severely food insecure. That's how we'll wrap. But in other news...
It is only 7.4%.
That is what the paper says, only 7.4%. So pardon me if I actually read it out. But in other news, some people are hoarding dollars because guess what? The dollar is expected to break the 8 today, according to some projections. And only God knows where that is going to end up, because people are still thinking, well, we can make a lot more if we hoard our dollars and exchange when the rates go higher. God see us through. But Liz, thank you, and same to you. That is media consultant Liz Hayfron-Asari, who has been our guest on the News Review. Time now for us to do sports. Up next, right here on the AM show. After that, our big stories. Stay with us.